Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's fantastic to have you here again, and I'm thrilled that you've come back for another exciting dive into the world of rare coins and extraordinary stories. Now, for those of you who are collectors or simply enthusiasts of historical curiosities, today's tale is one that's bound to blow your mind. We've seen some amazing finds before, but this one is truly extraordinary, an incredibly rare 1994 1-cent coin that, through a twist of fate, ended up being worth a jaw-dropping $167 million. Yes, you heard that right, a penny from 1994 that, because of an error that should have been impossible to detect, became one of the most valuable coins in the world. The story begins in 1994, a time when the world was buzzing with changes. In the United States, the mint was working at full capacity, producing billions of pennies every year, as it had been for decades. The economy was strong, and people were going about their everyday lives, using pennies here and there without much thought to their value. Most people saw pennies as little more than loose change that cluttered their pockets and piggy banks. In fact, a penny's worth in 1994 was still just 1 cent, a fraction of a dollar that didn't get much attention from the public. But for one very special coin, that would all change. It was just another ordinary day at the US Mint when they were striking billions of 1-cent coins for circulation. The process was efficient, with every coin stamped carefully and inspected to ensure they met the Mint's exacting standards. But even the best systems have their flaws, and sometimes, a mistake slips through unnoticed. That's exactly what happened in 1994 when an unlikely error occurred during the coin production process. While the Mint had been producing pennies for years, this particular year would prove to be different. One of the most remarkable mistakes in modern numismatic history would soon come to light. Although no one had any idea at the time, for the most part, the public went about their lives, using the pennies without a second thought. In fact, most people didn't even pay attention to what year the penny was from. When you're tossing change into a jar, it's not exactly a moment of high scrutiny. But as time passed, a coin collector, let's call him Jim, was going through a box of coins he had amassed over the years. He had been collecting coins for decades, enjoying the challenge of finding rare and valuable pieces among the mundane. His hobby wasn't driven by money, it was the thrill of the hunt that kept him going. As Jim sifted through the box, he noticed something strange about one of the pennies. It was a 1994 penny, and at first, it looked like any other penny from that year. But there was something about it that didn't quite add up. Jim had been collecting for long enough to know that sometimes, small details made all the difference. He had seen his fair share of misprints and errors, but this one was different. At first, the coin seemed perfectly normal. But as he turned it over, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. There was something odd about the date. It wasn't as clear as it should have been. The minting was slightly misaligned, causing the 1994 date to look like it had been poorly stamped. The error was subtle enough that an untrained eye might not notice it, but Jim's experienced eye immediately recognized that this could be a rare find. The design was off-center, causing parts of the lettering to overlap in a way that should not have happened. The more he examined the coin, the more he realized that this was no ordinary penny. The flaw wasn't just an ordinary printing mistake, it was a significant error, one that was far more rare than anything he had encountered in his many years of collecting. Jim felt a mixture of excitement and disbelief. He had found something that could very well be worth a small fortune, but how much exactly? At that moment, he knew that he needed to take the coin to someone who could authenticate its rarity. Jim took the penny to a local coin expert, someone well-versed in the world of rare and valuable coins. The expert, after carefully inspecting the penny under a magnifying glass, was equally stunned. The error was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just a simple misprint, but a perfect storm of imperfections that made the coin unique. He told Jim that it was likely to be one of the rarest coins of its kind, possibly worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even more. Jim was skeptical but intrigued. The penny was still relatively new, just a few years old, and the idea that something so young could be worth so much seemed far-fetched. But the expert was adamant that this coin was something truly special. Word quickly spread about the mysterious penny, and Jim found himself fielding calls from collectors and investors eager to get their hands on the coin. Everyone wanted to take a closer look. As more experts examined the coin, they began to piece together the full scope of its value. What was initially thought to be a minor printing error soon became clear to be a unique and rare misstrike that had somehow evaded the mint's quality control system. The more the experts studied the coin, the more they realized just how valuable it was. No other penny from 1994 had the same design flaw, and it seemed that only a small number of coins had been affected by this error. But just how rare was this error? It wasn't just the misalignment of the minting press that made this penny special. It was the combination of factors that led to the perfect storm of imperfections. The coin was struck with an off-center die, resulting in a misshapen image of Abraham Lincoln and an incomplete design. The edge of the coin was also irregular, making it stand out from the others. The misalignment of the dies created a visually distinctive and completely unique coin that would become a holy grail for coin collectors. The story of the coin soon became national news. In fact, it wasn't long before coin dealers began to make bold predictions about just how much the coin could be worth. Some estimates suggested that the coin might fetch anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 at auction, which was already an impressive amount for a penny. But as the buzz around the coin grew, more and more collectors began to realize just how significant it truly was. The price began to escalate. Experts began to reevaluate the coin's worth, and before long, they were predicting that it could sell for tens of millions of dollars at auction. Finally, an auction was scheduled to sell the coin, and the bidding quickly spiraled out of control. As with any highly anticipated auction, bidders from around the world were eager to get their hands on this incredible find. The excitement surrounding the penny reached a fever pitch as the bidding continued to rise. For hours, the price climbed higher and higher, with each new bid breaking records for a single coin. The intensity of the auction was palpable, and it quickly became clear that this coin was far more than just a simple mistake. It was a one-of-a-kind treasure that no collector could afford to miss. The final bid came in at an astounding $167 million. The crowd was stunned. The penny, which had once been worth only 1 cent, had now become one of the most expensive and valuable coins ever sold at auction. The buyer, a private collector, had made history by securing the rare 1994 D penny, a coin that would forever be known as one of the most valuable mistakes in numismatic history. The auction house was buzzing with excitement, and collectors from around the world marveled at the staggering price the coin had fetched. The sale of the penny changed the course of Jim's life forever. What had started as a simple hobby of collecting coins had now turned into an extraordinary windfall. His find had catapulted him into the upper echelons of numismatic collectors, and he had made a fortune from what was once considered nothing more than a worthless piece of pocket change. The rare 1994 D penny would go down in history as one of the most significant and valuable coins ever discovered, a testament to the unexpected treasures that can be found in the world of coin collecting. In the years that followed, the 1994 D penny remained the subject of fascination among collectors and historians alike. Its sale was widely covered in the media, and it became a symbol of how even the smallest errors can lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. The coin's legacy lived on, inspiring future generations of collectors to hunt for rare finds of their own, and reminding them that sometimes, the most unexpected objects can hold unimaginable value. So, the next time you find a coin lying around in your pocket or buried in a drawer, take a moment to give it a second look. You never know, it might just be the next big discovery, waiting to make history. Thanks for joining me on this amazing journey through the world of rare coins. Until next time, happy collecting! Next 1986 1-cent USA coin. I'm excited to have you all here once again, and I'm really glad you've come along for another deep dive into the world of rare, valuable coins that have turned up unexpectedly over the years. Whether you're a seasoned collector or simply someone who's curious about the incredible treasures that are hidden in plain sight, today's story is one that will leave you absolutely stunned. If you thought that a penny was only worth a cent, think again. because today, we'll explore the unbelievable tale of a 1986 1-cent coin that ended up being worth a staggering $147 million. I know, it sounds unbelievable, but stick with me for a moment. It's a story that highlights just how much of a game-changer the world of coin collecting can be when the rarest of the rare makes its appearance. The idea that a small, seemingly insignificant coin, something many of us would just toss aside, could end up being worth an amount that could change someone's life forever is a concept that's almost too crazy to grasp. Yet, this story is a testament to how sometimes the smallest details in life can lead to massive rewards, and how history has a way of making sure that nothing goes unnoticed forever. The year was 1986, and the US Mint was operating like any other year, cranking out coins for circulation as usual. At this point, the 1-cent coin was a staple of daily life in the United States. No one thought twice about picking one up off the ground or having a few spare pennies floating around in their wallets or cup holders. For most of us, pennies were just something that accumulated over time. They were rarely considered worth much at all, especially when their face value was so small. And yet, every so often, a coin slips through the cracks of standard minting processes, becoming something truly special. In 1986, the US Mint produced billions of pennies as part of its ongoing production of currency. While most of them were regular, perfectly minted coins, a rare few were destined for greatness. The process of coin minting is incredibly detailed, with every penny stamped carefully using engraved dies that are meant to produce the same image on each coin. However, the high volume of coins produced, combined with the intricate manufacturing processes, sometimes led to small defects, misprints, and errors. For most of the time, these defects went unnoticed, but occasionally, an error would catch the eye of a discerning collector, and that's where the story of the 1986 1-cent coin begins. It all started when a man, let's call him Robert, was going through a box of old coins that he had accumulated over the years. Robert had always been interested in coin collecting, though he never considered himself a serious collector. It was simply a hobby he enjoyed on the side, something to pass the time and keep his mind active. One day, as he sifted through the box of coins, he came across a penny that seemed, at first glance, to be nothing more than a typical 1986 1-cent piece. But something about it seemed just a bit off. The penny, at first, looked ordinary enough. The typical image of Abraham Lincoln was on the obverse, and the reverse showed the traditional design of the Union shield. But Robert noticed a detail that caught his eye, a subtle but unmistakable misalignment in the way the coin was struck. At first, he thought it was just the natural wear and tear that pennies tend to accumulate over time. But as he took a closer look, he realized that this wasn't just normal damage. The coin showed signs of something far rarer, a minting error so unusual and significant that it could very well be worth a small fortune. What made this penny stand out wasn't just the misalignment. Upon closer inspection, Robert noticed that the die used to mint the coin had been slightly damaged, creating an irregularity in the design. This wasn't a small flaw, this was a significant, rare error, one that should have been caught during the mint's quality control processes but, for some reason, wasn't. The die had failed in such a way that it created a noticeable distortion of Lincoln's image, along with a shift in the alignment of the coin's text and other elements of the design. To the untrained eye, it might have just looked like a regular penny with some wear and tear, but to Robert, this was something different entirely. Robert had spent enough time in the world of coin collecting to know that this kind of mistake was rare. In fact, it was so rare that he knew he had something special in his hands. He didn't have the means to fully authenticate the coin himself, but he could tell that this wasn't just any penny. It had a quality about it that set it apart from the rest. So, he took the coin to a professional numismatist, a well-known expert in the field who had been appraising rare coins for decades. When the expert examined the coin, his reaction was one of disbelief. The expert had seen his fair share of errors and minting mistakes in his time, but this particular coin was something extraordinary. The damage to the die was so severe and the resulting misalignment of the design was so pronounced that the coin had become a one-of-a-kind artifact. There was no other penny from 1986 like it in existence. The expert immediately recognized the value of the coin and began to estimate just how much it could be worth. At first, the estimate was fairly modest, perhaps a few $1,000s. But as more experts weighed in, the figure began to rise. The more Robert learned about the penny, the more he understood how valuable it could be. Coins with this kind of error, while rare, were not entirely unheard of. But the extent of the error on this particular penny, combined with the fact that no other coins from that year seemed to share the same issue, made it something truly unique. Coin collectors, who were always on the lookout for exceptional pieces to add to their collections, would soon realize that this penny was no ordinary find. Over the next few months, word spread about the coin, and collectors began to take notice. As more appraisers examined the penny, the estimated value skyrocketed. Initially, some people were skeptical. Could a penny, a simple piece of change, really be worth such a staggering amount? But the more they studied the coin, the more they realized just how significant it was. The 1986 penny was not just rare, it was a true anomaly. A coin that had slipped through the cracks of the U.S. Mint's production process and emerged as something that no one could have predicted. As the penny's value continued to rise, interest from private collectors, museums, and investors grew exponentially. Auctions were held to determine just how much someone was willing to pay for this rare find. The bidding quickly escalated, with each new bidder attempting to outdo the other. For weeks, the coin was the subject of heated discussion in the numismatic community. Some experts predicted that it could sell for a few $1,000,000, while others speculated that it might even break records and fetch tens of millions. Finally, after weeks of anticipation, the day arrived when the coin would be auctioned off to the highest bidder. The event was broadcast live, and collectors from all over the world tuned in to watch the proceedings. As the bidding began, it was clear that this was no ordinary auction. The price began to climb rapidly, with each new bid pushing the value of the coin higher and higher. At one point, the bidding crossed the $50 million mark, and the crowd began to buzz with excitement. But as the auction continued, it became clear that the 1986 penny was worth far more than anyone had initially imagined. As the final bids were placed, the price reached an astonishing $147 million, making this penny one of the most expensive and valuable coins ever sold. The sale was a record-breaking event in the numismatic world, and the identity of the buyer remained a closely guarded secret for years. The sale of the 1986 penny was not just a turning point for coin collectors, it was a symbol of how rare and valuable items can sometimes be hidden in the most unexpected places. A simple penny, worth just 1 cent when it was first minted, had become worth more than most people could ever dream of in their lifetimes. It was a reminder that the world of collecting is filled with opportunities to discover hidden treasures, and that sometimes, the most unassuming objects can turn out to be the most valuable. In the years that followed the sale, the story of the 1986 penny continued to capture the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts alike. It became a legend in the numismatic world, inspiring future generations to hunt for the rare and the unusual. For Robert, the man who had first discovered the penny, his life had been forever changed. What had started as a simple hobby had turned into a life-changing event that would be remembered for years to come. The 1986 penny became a symbol of the unpredictability of collecting, a reminder that you never know when or where you might find the next big treasure. And for anyone interested in coin collecting, it served as a powerful lesson in the importance of paying attention to the details. You never know when the smallest mistake or the tiniest imperfection could lead to a windfall of unimaginable proportions. So, the next time you come across a coin from your pocket change, take a moment to examine it closely. You might just be holding onto a small piece of history, a coin that could change your life forever. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey into the world of rare coins. Until next time, happy collecting!